The shocking truth behind Steph Curry's rise, injuries, and legacy. For years, Curry has mesmerized basketball fans with his gravity-defying three-pointers and lightning-fast ball handling. How does someone barely considered D1 material in high school become the embodiment of basketball's new era, where a single flick of the wrist from 30 feet out can spark roars in the stands? Sure, you've likely seen the highlights and heard the accolades, but there's a side to Steph Curry's story that's often overlooked. The injuries that nearly derailed him, the controversies that fueled debates across the sports world, and the persistent rumors about whether his meteoric rise was all it seemed. From doubters telling him he was too small to entire fan bases accusing referees of protecting him, Curry's path to the pinnacle has been anything but smooth. At times, it feels like each dramatic three-pointer, each confident grin after a big shot has been matched by an equally dramatic setback, like an ankle giving out at the worst possible moment, or a tailbone-shattering fall that left him writhing on the hardwood. Nobody expected him to revolutionize the game, and almost nobody believed he'd hold up under the weight of a seemingly fragile physique. Yet he's proved the naysayers wrong time and again. That's only part of the story. There are deeper layers to the baby-faced assassin, a moniker that might sound cute but reflects just how lethal he can be on the court. Behind the scenes, rumors paint a picture of a player who struggled to stay relevant in a league dominated by taller, more physically imposing stars, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Even as Steph racked up accolades from MVP awards to championship rings, questions kept popping up. Could he handle the defensive abuse? Would his body break under pressure? And more to the point, has the unassuming guard from Davidson College seen his best days, or is he just getting started? If you've ever wondered how a seemingly fragile point guard could shake up the NBA, or what truly goes on when those arena lights go dim, buckle up. This story dives into the hidden challenges, the near-ruinous injuries, and the surprising controversies that have shaped one of the most polarizing figures in modern basketball. By the end of it, you might find yourself questioning the line between destiny and determination. Because if Steph Curry's journey teaches us anything, it's that even the smallest spark can ignite a fire that changes the game forever. Steph Curry was never supposed to be an NBA superstar. At least, that's what nearly every scout and recruiter seemed to believe in his teenage years. Growing up in the shadow of his father, Del Curry, he was still just a skinny kid with an awkward shooting motion. Colleges weren't exactly lining up to offer him scholarships. The big programs saw him as too frail. Some experts even wondered if he was better suited for a mid-major school, or maybe just a role on the bench at a more prominent university. He ended up at Davidson College, a tiny institution that would become the launching pad for one of basketball's most unexpected success stories. At Davidson, Curry's star power became evident during the NCAA tournament, where he consistently sank improbable shots against major contenders. He wasn't posterizing defenders with powerful dunks. He was outsmarting and outshooting them. Suddenly, the same scouts who had turned him away were realizing they might have missed something special. Critics started asking, could this jump shot specialist really hang in the NBA? Yet whispers remained that he was too small and would crumble under the bruising physicality of professional defenders. In fact, these whispers became more like roars after he declared for the NBA draft in 2009. Despite his eye-opening performances in college, the top slots were reserved for bigger names and bigger frames. When the Golden State Warriors selected him 7th overall, commentators jumped in with their opinions. Some saw him as a future star who could change the league with his shooting, while others labeled him a gimmick. Someone whose college success wouldn't translate to the pros. The war of opinions was intense. This tension carried into his rookie season. He had flashes of brilliance, but skeptics pointed to his slender build, claiming it would limit how far he could go. It also didn't help that he suffered early ankle injuries, which threatened to confirm every worst-case scenario about his durability. Still, behind every step he took, there was this unshakable confidence. At times, it bordered on downright audacity, like he was telling the world, "Yes, I know you doubt me, but you'll regret it." Despite the doubts, Curry kept honing his skills, especially that quick-release shot. His practice routines became legendary. Stories of him sinking hundreds of three-pointers in a row during workouts started circulating. Rumor or not, one thing was certain. If the world wanted him to prove he could last, he was going to do it with both style and substance. Things started to shift dramatically around Curry's 4th season in the NBA. The Golden State Warriors were beginning to show signs of a championship-caliber team, and Curry was at the heart of that transformation. His shooting range was unlike anything the league had seen. Opponents found themselves stepping several feet beyond the three-point line just to guard him, often to no avail. He'd dribble behind his back, spin through a double team, and launch the ball from a distance that once seemed unimaginable. The conversation among analysts shifted from if Curry was a star to how great he might become. His popularity soared, and with it came intense scrutiny. While fans loved the show he put on, old-school commentators argued that his style was too reliant on the three ball, calling it high risk. On slow nights, when his shot didn't fall, they'd proclaim him exposed, seizing the opportunity to question if he was truly a top-tier player. Yet the stats spoke for themselves. The Warriors piled up wins, and Curry's teammates followed his lead. In 2014 to 2015, everything seemed to click. Under head coach Steve Kerr, Curry was handed the keys to an offense that emphasized pace and space. Teams tried every defensive trick, doubling him at half court, putting taller defenders on him, even resorting to borderline rough tactics to throw him off. Rarely did it work. By the end of that season, he was hoisting the MVP trophy, and skeptics were running out of material. How could they call him a fluke when he just guided his team to a championship? Still, success came with a price. When you rise quickly, you attract a horde of detractors who see your ascent as a threat to the established order. Some fans across social media voiced a strange form of resentment, accusing Curry of ruining the game by encouraging kids to launch wild shots from half court. Traditionalists insisted that fundamentals like mid-range jumpers and post-ups were being overshadowed by his flashy style. In the stands, you'd hear debates about whether it was even good for the league to have a star who took more threes than layups. Controversies aside, there was a magnetic draw to his game, one that pulled in even the harshest critics. Watching him casually dribble up the court and flick the ball from distances that seemed absurd, only to have it swish through the net, felt like witnessing an illusion. Yet for all the magic, the physical toll was becoming increasingly evident. Each ankle roll or tweak reminded everyone that the line between greatness and disaster was razor thin for someone with his build. By the time Steph Curry solidified himself as an MVP, his face was splashed across advertisements, magazine covers, and social media feeds worldwide. The once overlooked guard from Davidson had become the darling of the NBA. Yet with superstardom came pressures no one but he could truly understand. In post-game interviews, he'd flash a smile that signaled calm confidence. But behind the scenes, every move he made became fodder for debate. Was he being humble, or was he arrogantly basking in the adoration? Then there were the controversies. Some fans, from rival teams especially, lashed out, claiming referees favored him and never called him for traveling or palming the ball. Every time he performed one of his mesmerizing dribble routines, someone, somewhere, was pausing the replay to count the steps. Occasionally, in moments of frustration, Curry would fling his mouth guard. Once, it accidentally hit a fan, and media outlets went wild, painting the action as a meltdown. Critics jumped on the opportunity to question his composure, or even brand him as petulant. Others defended him, chalking it up to the heat of competition and pointing out how rare such outbursts were. As if that wasn't enough to stir the rumor mill, Kevin Durant's arrival in Golden State accelerated the chatter. People speculated that Durant's superstar status overshadowed Curry's. Could Steph handle sharing the spotlight? Or worse, was he secretly relieved to have another big name absorb the pressure? Certain analysts suggested that Curry would never again be the driving force behind a championship team, because Durant would inevitably take that role. Meanwhile, whisper campaigns started claiming that Curry felt overshadowed by the hype around Durant. The conflicting narratives became an endless carousel of speculation, each one spinning faster every time the Warriors either dominated or stumbled. Much of this talk, however, missed one crucial point. The Warriors were winning. On the surface, that's what mattered. Yet simmering beneath the victorious exterior was the reality that Curry was still battling injuries and the day-to-day rigors of being an elite athlete under a relentless spotlight. The anxieties grew stronger with each passing year. Every new twinge in his ankle or tweak in his knee could spell doom. No matter how many trophies he hoisted, the narrative always looped back to that one burning question. How long before his body betrays him? Even early in his career, Curry's ankles seemed to be made of glass. His repeated sprains and ankle tweaks nearly derailed him before he'd fully reached his prime. To stabilize his future, the Warriors' training staff implemented specialized braces and rigorous therapy sessions. At times, it appeared to work. He'd go months without a major issue, and fans would breathe a sigh of relief. Yet the next injury always felt like it was lurking around the corner, waiting to strike at the most inopportune time. Then came the night of the tailbone injury, a moment that circulated widely on social media. During a drive to the hoop, Curry lost his footing and crashed hard onto the lower part of his back. The force of impact was so jarring that you could practically feel the shock through the TV screen. Immediately, he clutched his back in pain, and an eerie hush fell over the arena. Analysts replayed the footage in slow motion, speculating about how severe the damage could be. A tailbone injury might sound less dramatic than a torn ligament, but its lingering effects can be brutal. Pain during every twist, every pivot, every quick shift in direction. In the aftermath, worried whispers circulated. Was this the beginning of a downward spiral? Curry, known for his positivity, tried to reassure everyone that he'd be fine. But teammates weren't blind to the fact that their leader was hurting. The Warriors needed him on the floor. Without Curry's spacing and offensive creativity, the system ran on half its horsepower. Reporters hounded him and the team's medical staff for updates, amplifying every clue. Did he limp getting off the team bus? Was he moving gingerly in practice? The speculation escalated, fueled by fans who feared the worst. Rival fan bases had a field day on social media, some reveling in the Warriors' misfortune, others genuinely concerned that a beloved star might be seriously hurt. Sports talk shows debated the long-term ramifications. Would Curry ever be the same? Could a chronic back issue derail the rest of his career? The fact that he'd battled ankle problems for so long made it easier to envision a scenario where his body just couldn't take another major setback. Yet in true Curry fashion, he took this moment as yet another test of his resilience. If the past had taught him anything, it was how to tune out the noise and focus on his own recovery, even while the world speculated about his downfall. In sports, physical pain often overshadows the emotional strain that comes with being perpetually in and out of the lineup. But for the Golden State Warriors, the emotional weight was undeniable. Steph Curry was the engine that made their offense run smoothly. Whenever he had to sit out, the team struggled to maintain its identity. Younger players faced added pressure, and veterans worried about how they'd fill the leadership void. The hustle and grit could only take them so far if the team's main three-point maestro was absent or severely limited. Amid these challenges, rumors about locker room divisions started cropping up. Was the coaching staff leaning too heavily on Curry? Were other players frustrated that they could never quite establish their rhythm because the offense was structured around a single star's availability? Some insiders, under the veil of anonymity, hinted that there were indeed moments of tension. One day, Curry might be sidelined by an ankle tweak, and the Warriors would cobble together a new rotation, only for him to return the next week and reshuffle the entire setup again. Over time, that can breed quiet resentments, even in winning cultures. Curry himself felt the weight of these complications. Injuries test your body, sure, but they also create self-doubt. For a shooter, confidence is everything. If you're second-guessing your landing or the torque you generate from your lower back, your shot's mechanics can slip. The mental gymnastics involved in balancing caution with aggression can be draining. There's also the stark reality that as you grow older in the NBA, each injury can mean longer recovery times. Curry had to reckon with whether these setbacks were simply unfortunate coincidences or a harbinger of his body's decline. Through it all, he tried to maintain a unifying presence. When he couldn't play, he cheered his teammates from the sidelines and offered pointers where he could. He rarely allowed self-pity to surface in public. Still, even the most stoic athlete can't dodge the sense of impending doom when each injury becomes a media circus. If the Warriors faltered, critics pointed to Curry's absence. If they succeeded, the conversation turned to whether they even needed him. Trapped in this cycle of speculation, Curry shouldered the emotional burden of living up to the hype while fighting to stay physically intact. And just when it seemed like a gloom might settle permanently, the narrative flipped again. Because that's how it always went with Steph Curry's roller coaster career. Every time the injuries or rumors threatened to overshadow him, Curry orchestrated a comeback that defied expectations. Perhaps the most heartwarming part of his story is how often he transforms a moment of vulnerability into an opportunity for brilliance. After each ankle mishap, fans braced for a decline, only to witness him light up the scoreboard upon his return. Even after the scary tailbone injury, he unleashed a flurry of high-scoring games that had commentators rushing to reevaluate their dire predictions. One such resurgence arrived in the run-up to a pivotal playoff stretch, when the Warriors needed a spark to recapture their old championship form. Having been sidelined for multiple games, Curry jumped back into the lineup and immediately started drilling 3 after 3 with a level of confidence that looked downright supernatural. Opponents found themselves in the unenviable position of trying to slow down someone who could shoot the ball before they even realized he'd let it go. Analysts marveled at his uncanny ability to not only shake off rust, but seem to come back even sharper. A renewed Warriors era appeared on the horizon when Klay Thompson returned from his own devastating injuries. The Splash Brothers reunited, proving that Golden State's lethal backcourt was not just a relic of the past. Even newer additions to the team found themselves elevated by Curry's presence. Young players stepped up, learning from his example of perpetual motion and unwavering belief in the next shot. Before long, the Warriors were once again a formidable contender. The more success the team found, the louder the debates grew about Curry's legacy. Could he really be in the same conversation as LeBron James, Michael Jordan, or Kobe Bryant, given the nature of his three-point heavy game? Certain corners of the internet seemed eager to discredit his achievements, pointing to the so-called super team dynamics. Others championed him as the revolutionizer of modern basketball, praising how he redefined shot selection and spacing in a way that trickled down to the youngest levels of the sport. Yet no matter which side you land on, one fact is impossible to dispute. Whenever Curry is firing on all cylinders, the Warriors become must-watch television. He doesn't have to deliver monster dunks or snarl at the camera to captivate the audience. His sheer artistry, shooting arcs that seem to pierce the rafters, does that all on its own. And as for the notion that his body can't keep pace, each comeback story has only reinforced the mystique that he possesses some intangible reserve of strength, fueled by the endless cycle of doubt that's followed him since his college days. From a fragile-looking teen who couldn't convince most D1 programs to take a chance on him, to the generational talent who changed the NBA's entire offensive philosophy, Stephen Curry's life reads like an improbable script. He has soared higher than almost anyone anticipated, collecting MVP trophies, championships, and the unyielding devotion of fans worldwide. Yet at the same time, he's battled a body that seems bent on testing his limits. Every crippling ankle roll, every nasty fall onto his tailbone, every moment that left the crowd holding its breath. These incidents could have snuffed out his rise if not for his relentless commitment to rehabilitation and his unbreakable mental toughness. Controversies swirling around him, accusations of special treatment from refs, mouthguard flinging incidents, debates about ruining the game with excessive three-point shooting have only amplified his aura. Whether you see him as an undeniable icon or an overhyped shooter, you can't deny the magnetic pull of his performance. His critics wait for the day his shot stops falling or his body finally can't bounce back, while his supporters believe he'll keep breaking records and proving people wrong well into the twilight of his career. What remains truly fascinating is how Curry's journey speaks to something bigger than basketball. It's a story about defying stereotypes, shattering expectations, and finding new ways to approach a craft, be it sports or any profession. At every juncture where he could have bowed to external pressures or nagging injuries, he chose a different path: adaptation and resilience. Each question about his durability or place among the game's greats became fuel for yet another historic run. So, as the NBA continues to evolve and another generation of long-range sharpshooters emerges, one has to wonder, will anyone ever truly replicate what Steph Curry has accomplished? He's not the tallest, not the strongest, and certainly not the loudest player on the court, yet his impact on the sport has been seismic. The skeptics who once dismissed him can't help but acknowledge how drastically the league has changed, in large part because of his style of play. Kids growing up today practice shots from distances that used to be considered absurd, all inspired by a player who thrived on proving the impossible could be done. And now, with his career still unfolding, we're left with one of the most tantalizing cliffhangers in sports. How long can he keep this up, and what new surprises might be lurking around the corner? Perhaps he'll play well into his late 30s, still draining threes and confounding defenses. Or maybe an injury will finally force him to slow down. In a way, that uncertainty is exactly what keeps us glued to every Warriors game. Like a tightly wound spring, Curry's career is coiled with potential energy, capable of erupting into a flurry of points at a moment's notice or snapping under the relentless grind of the NBA schedule. For now, though, he continues to defy physics with each arcing shot, defy critics with each healthy return, and defy the notion that the little guy can't topple giants. His story, studded with triumphs and trials, stands as a testament to what's possible when talent, hard work, and resilience converge. Whether you view him as a once-in-a-generation genius or a lucky beneficiary of a shifting basketball landscape, there's no denying Steph Curry has left an indelible mark on the game. If the past is any indicator, he's not done surprising us yet. The real question is, are we ready for whatever he does next?